I want to welcome everybody to this year's Carmel Film Forum. I'm James Moriarty. I'm your host and the grant writer of the project. We have done all kinds of cool stuff over the past 9 years. We've taught everything from documentary filmmaking to music video to screenwriting. We can't do this without help from our community. Dan, would you like to tell us a little bit about the Indy Film Fest?
Sure, thanks. Yeah, my name is Dan Moore. I've been executive director of Indy Film Fest for something like 8 or 9, 10 years, something like that. So we're a 100% volunteer organization, and we're about to do our 23rd film festival here in April of next year, April 22nd through 26th. Submissions are open, as are our volunteer roles. Like I said, we're 100% volunteers. So if you want to get involved in film exhibition in downtown Indianapolis, we'd love to have you be a part of that, either as a screener year-round. You can sell tickets during the festival. You can join our board. There's all sorts of different ways to get involved with that. We do also help put on the Indianapolis chapter of the 48-Hour Film Project, which is a fun way to get together with some friends, both professional and amateur, and everyone's kind of got some level playing field. It's got a competition that takes place over 48 or 48 and a half hours, and that is in June. That takes place in June. We do the screenings in July for that, so that'll be coming up next year too. And yeah, thanks for letting us help out the Carmel Film Forum.
So I'm Nathan Bechtold. I'm the president of Indiana Filmmakers Network. Again, like Dan, we run a non-for-profit. It's been over 25 years, and we are volunteer-based. We are one of the largest cinematic arts collectives in the Midwest, sponsored by SAG-AFTRA. And we have a lot of great programming coming up for next year, so I'm excited about that. The state has a lot of cool things going on, and so kudos to the state, and hopefully it'll work out for us creatives. A little bit about the cinematic arts. The cinematic arts, in my view, the way I've always promoted it through Indiana Filmmakers Network, because it's hard to tell Hoosiers sometimes they know the arts, they understand arts, but they don't understand filmmaking or media making or everything that goes involved with that. If you watch a Marvel movie, you're seeing 10 minutes of credited individuals at the end of the movie, and those are just the people getting credited. So that's hair, makeup design, set design, intellectual property lawyers, everything and everything between. IFN has multiple hubs across the state of Indiana. When it comes to the cinematic arts in particular, we always like to focus on individual topics each month at different locations. And then we encourage each hub to, let's say if you are in Fort Wayne or in Evansville and they're more about acting or writing, if their focus is more on writing, then we'll focus more on that. If they're focused on pre-production, production planning, or networking altogether, then we focus on that. James and I have talked about this for years about what the cinematic arts can do for Indiana. We've helped with fiscal sponsorships for a lot of different programs. We encourage you to write the grant, but we'll facilitate as a non-for-profit for that grant. And we can talk more about that if you are working on a project and you're looking for some support. You can do that through a number of places. So if you go to multiple different arts places or non-for-profits to get sponsorship letters, do it. I think a lot of filmmakers, when they're looking for funding, they get a little in the mire of like a GoFundMe or some kind of like online solicitation. There's other kinds of funding. And let's say if you have a very specific historical film, work with your local tourism. Look with Parks and Rec. Maybe they can help you find a museum or a place to film for free or a bed and breakfast for lower costs. Indiana is actually very good to work with, and your Parks and Recs and tourism I can't speak more highly of. It's one of the better government agencies in Indiana because they really want to showcase what Indiana has, and we are a wonderful state.
Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Aasen. I am president of the Carmel City Council, the city that you're in right now. So if you're not from Carmel, welcome to Carmel, and I hope that you enjoy your time here today. The arts are really important to our community, and it's not just about having fun and being able to go to a concert or go to an art gallery. They're part of our economic development strategy. There's numerous studies that show the importance of art, of having a ripple effect on local economies. Probably the most quoted one is Americans for the Arts, very big national organizations, that says for every dollar spent on the arts, $49 flows back into your community. because people go out to eat, people stop at a store, it employs people who then spend money into your community. So it definitely has a rippling effect, and it's been a big part of Carmel's strategy for, I'd say, about 2 decades, but definitely since the Center for the Performing Arts, our big performing arts venue, opened in 2011. It's not only brought national recognition for our city, and I think is part of the reason that we're regularly ranked as one of the best places to live in the country, but it helps support our economy. I used to own a restaurant in Carmel for about 10 years on Main Street, and we know anytime there was a gallery walk where people would go and see some of the fine art galleries in our community, or a show at the Palladium, it drove customers into our restaurant. We planned around it. We knew it would help basically drive business for people. And so we want to keep supporting that. One thing that we did many years ago was create a community fund for arts grants. And this organization is a recipient of this arts grant, and I really think that's a good decision because it helps not only startups, smaller organizations kind of get off the ground, but it helps support kind of our resident companies who really have dug in their roots and invested in our community. And traditionally, that's been about 1% of our city's budget, which is significant, but it's something we feel really strongly in. But I say all this because I support the arts. We are facing threats to arts funding on a federal level, state level, and even locally. And as you know, as budgets become tighter, it seems that the arts is always the first thing that gets cut. And we really need to rethink that, because if you're running a business, if you're cutting something that is generating revenue for your community, that's short-sighted. So taking out dollars that bring dollars into your community may not be the wisest move. And not only is it an economic development strategy, it just makes it a great place to live. It's part of quality of life. If you're not from Carmel, don't go straight home after this. Please stop in our city, find some place to go out to eat, and get to know Carmel. That's why we do stuff like this. And two, whether you're a resident or not, please let your local officials know, whether it's state level, federal level, but even here locally, please preserve the arts, please preserve the funding, because it is an important part of our strategy, and it's something that, sure, politically you can cut it, and I'm sure some people will be like, oh, that's fine, but we're not here to do political decisions. We're here to do what's right for the community, both from an economic development strategy, but also creating quality of life, making this a place that you want to continue to live. So,
what's the possibility of a percent for art program built into like municipal code, and where the developers would pay a percentage as they come in? So it wouldn't be anything from the city, but it would be imposed upon any developer that would come in and the project, so that would percent could go towards the arts.
So some cities do that. A lot of times I've seen it more for like public art statues. We're saying, hey, you need to donate into a public arts fund with the creation of the project. There's certainly things you can do there. Everything is a balancing act, because every time you ask a developer to spend more money and do more things, that's either something else they'll cut from the project, or if you ask too much, some part of the project doesn't happen. So we do have to be careful there. But I also think that we need to sell some of these developers on how investment in the arts can help enhance a lot of their projects. I mean, one thing that I wish we could find somewhere in the city, and I think there's a way, is kind of a maker space for people. Yeah. So we have great festivals. The Carmel International Arts Festival is fantastic. We have a lot of artists who come to our community, but there's not really a lot of places for artists to make art. And I understand rents can be very expensive, but if you could carve out a little bit into a mixed-use development proposal, I think that could be something that benefits the community. Another thing that talking about is having good public spaces where we can program events and making it the process open for artists to say, I want to, film something, or I want to have a festival or an art show, and making those areas available to them. And then, like I said, whether it's statues or murals or paintings, we need to make sure that we are continuing to invest in those arts too. Murals are a great way to showcase the community. I like them to be locally done if possible. I understand we want to have the best of the best, but we have great talent here locally. I'll just close on this. We shouldn't be fearful of letting people film in our community too. I know sometimes people are saying, well, what are they going to film? What are they going to do? Are they going to close off this street? Are they going to make us look bad? Are they going to make fun of Carmel? And I don't think that's what filmmakers are here to do, is to, embarrass the community. I think it's a great way to both showcase our area, but it also generates dollars. I think it's very short-sighted that on a state level, this is not local, we have a very antiquated system when it comes to tax credits for film production. And we're seeing movies that either local filmmakers, are going elsewhere, or even things that were set here in Indiana. I mean, it's a shame that The Fault in Our Stars was filmed in, was it like Toronto and Pittsburgh? Yeah. The Madam C.J. Walker story, a local icon, a miniseries on Netflix, again, not filmed here. And I understand you can, brag about everything we have, but a lot of times you're working on these productions on a budget. And unless we start looking at a real tax incentive system to bring them here, it's not going to happen. And I think it's also short-sighted too, because people say, well, why should they got so much money in Hollywood? Why should they ever get a tax incentive? Well, right now, you know how much we're getting? 0. So let's negotiate and see what we can bring to our community to not only create jobs, put dollars into our community, but also showcase our community in a positive way. I mean, those were productions you would want to see filmed here. Yes.
First off, thank you for all the information
Yeah.
and everything. I didn't know that you had a podcast. That's super cool.
I used to do that, and it was fun. I used to watch a lot of movies, and as you know, after COVID, now everything's on streaming, and I need to get my butt into a theater more often. So
Yeah, okay, cool. So my question is going back to the incentive. What do you think it's going to take for Indiana to have a film incentive? And does that fall on us local filmmakers to come together and create products and intellectual property that will show the city that we have value? Or
talking about what will it take to finally get some film tax credits or incentives, a lot of that would be at the state level. So I would encourage you to contact, state representatives. They can create bills that would help create some of this. They're facing some funding challenges as well. And, hopefully they'll see that not only is this something not to be afraid of, this is a positive thing to highlight our community, our state, and our cities, but it's also something that I think really generates dollars, and you can show them the math. Like, if they're worried about the movies, did anyone see the film, what was it, Columbus, that came out a couple years ago? What a cool way to show off the architecture and kind of the history of that town. And things like that are something that we want to welcome, being filmed here in our state. So I think it's a cool thing, and hopefully maybe some people wake up their eyes a little bit that this can not only generate dollars, but be positive publicity.
I have been writing since I was like 10 years old when I started keeping a diary. I've worked in a lot of nonprofits over the years. Fast forward, now I'm a freelance writer and grant consultant. So that's what I'm doing here. Also, James and I graduated from high school the same year and competed in an arts contest way back in 1987. Oh my gosh.
And we won.
So this is the proverbial money tree. No, maybe we can help you find a little seed for this money tree. But before I go any further, I do want to thank each of you for choosing to be here and for having the gumption and energy as artists to bring your ideas and do the hard work of bringing your ideas to life. So I'm here for you, Paige is here for you, and we want to support your work. That's why we said yes when James asked us to do this. So just doing a little quick poll. Let's see, how do you feel about writing grants? How many people have tried it before? Okay. How many have never tried it? Okay, that's good to know. It's not, we can make sure it's not rocket science. So this is what we're going to talk about today. You can read. So also thinking, what's the scariest thing for you about grants? And for those maybe who haven't written one. Anyone want to say?
Not getting the funding.
Not getting the funding. Oh my gosh, yeah, that could be scary. The time, the investment of time.
Getting rejected on a technicality.
Getting rejected on a technicality, ouch.
I think once you get the grant, just making sure you're staying within all the stipulations to whatever the grant's at.
After you get it, staying in line with the requirements. Okay, this I'm asking you to keep inside your mind right now. What is an achievable grant-related goal you would like to set, inspired by today? So have that in your head. So what does it take to get ready? Whenever I ask my husband when we're leaving the house, I'm like, "Are you ready?" He's like, "I was born ready." And so what does it take to get there? So if you want some money, you can rob a bank. Oh, did I just say that? I'm sorry. No, what we mean is that in order to get funding, you have to have a clear vision and a clear hook. Also, it's true that there is an imbalance of power when it comes to philanthropy. They have the money and you don't. And sometimes that's really frustrating. But my true belief is that grant writing is really about partnership and alignment. So we're going to talk about that. Also, grant writing and grant getting are not usually a fast process. Hence the turtle. I also am a believer that the shortest distance between 2 points is actually getting money from someone you might know, like a person of wealth or even not, but relationships. That's really the foundation, right? I see your head nodding. So this is about being clear. What are you solving for? What's going to change if you get this funding? What message is going to suddenly be out in the world in a way that it never has been? And that's what foundations want to know, what's going to change if I give you money. So, like we said, funders are people too, even though there's that power imbalance. Most of the time, if you have a grant that you know of, there might be a person's name associated with it, it's always a great idea to call and email and try to get a contact, try to get a conversation before you do the writing. It's just, finding alignment. So there's different kinds of funding, obviously. These are 3 of them. And I know that sometimes it's a question about if I'm an individual artist, am I even eligible for getting grants from foundations? Can I get a sponsorship? I know I could ask people I know for money, but my friend Paige has a few words to say about thinking about eligibility when it comes to grants.
Okay, so we want to make you think about this in a more expansive version. So you are one human, and oftentimes as grant funders, which could be government, it could be a foundation, unless it's usually like for a film, usually it is open to primarily a nonprofit organization, a 501c3. But I love to work around rules. I was in state government for over 15 years, and I get really good at it, believe it or not. And so there's a couple ways, a couple of different directions you can go. One is a fiscal sponsorship that James mentioned earlier, and another one is partnering with a 501c3. Now I want to go back to what is a fiscal sponsor, because that's kind of like super jargony stuff. It's basically a nonprofit who will just lend you their name and their 501c3. They will be the applicant. Now, you're doing the project, you're writing the application, you are doing the project, you're doing all of the reporting that you're on the hook for. The 501c3 goes under contract and they receive the money and they give you the money. So that's a very minor role. You're doing everything else. Now, why would they do that? Because when you get the grant, part of that money will go towards that sponsor for the role that they are doing. They're at risk. if you don't do the project. So they're putting themselves at risk. So it makes sense for, say, 10% of your grant to go to that sponsor.
So there's, there are foundations all over the place, but thinking about local funders first is probably the place to start. Here's an example of a spreadsheet I created for one of my clients for, who are the funders, when are their deadlines, and so on. You can make your own hit list. There are also databases you can subscribe to. One of them, living in Indianapolis, I can access it for free, but I physically have to go to the public library. It's called the Foundation Directory, so I'm saving $219.99, thanks to my public library. And so when you're searching databases, you can put in all these terms. Doing a documentary on bats. I don't know, I love bats. And one of my clients does a project to preserve bats in Indiana forests. You can, run for environmental preservation, not as opposed to just, I want to get a grant for filmmaking. No, I want to get a grant related to environmental presentation. So that's where you look at areas of interest when you're filtering grants. This was this is a website that I love to listen to. It's called Tree FM. When I feel stressed out, I just put it in the background while I'm writing grants. I just recommend it. Okay, here is where we're talking again about finding the alignment with you and your funder. There's no substitute for it. Like I said, making contact with the foundation, getting any kind of feedback you can before starting to write. There's no substitute for that. It's not always possible, but it's always worth trying. Sometimes you even can think of who knows who. Do you know anyone? Do you know any board members who are on this foundation's board? You're nodding your head. Have you had some experience making a connection with?
In the nonprofit world.
Yeah.
So we have quite a few people that, it's people are so interthreaded.
Right.
So.
Luckily, Central Indiana is not really the biggest universe. You can find people who know people, and it's not like cheating or something. It's about connecting authentically. So when you're telling your story, actually, don't start telling. Ask lots of questions. I love asking questions, and asking questions is how to get clues on what direction you want to go in. What I do when I'm trying to get a foundation's attention, I'll call and ask, what is their advice for approaching, or what is their advice for, positioning my ask? And those are the kinds of questions. Also, like, who else have you funded? And, all those. I always say that communication is about the audience more than the communicator. So let's see. Here are some of just a gut check again. What pieces of this do you think you need to focus most on? Just thinking about it. I'll let you think about it. When you actually decide, okay, this grant seems like a fit, I've been encouraged or I haven't been discouraged, I'm going to go ahead and write this grant. Every grant seems to have a different process for submission. Most of them use a portal of some sort, and my tactic is so I don't get wigged out by all these different technical pieces. I'll log in and kind of pull the questions out into a Word doc, and so I can really play with them there. Because nobody wants to wait until the day it's due to discover that, there's a word limit of 1,000 words, and I have 2,000 words. So you can avoid that strain and stress. So here are some of the types of pieces of information you have to be prepared to have. This probably, makes plenty of sense. Biographies, work samples. This This one interests me a lot. Approach and ethics, artistic approach, connection and access, I guess, to the people or subject that you want to explore. What's your particular perspective? Are you taking care of your crew? These are some questions I saw on a proposal for film. And then, of course, budgeting. Everyone's favorite thing, but having a great budget is important, right? Impacts of previous projects, something interesting to be able to share. Yeah, I like to do my budgets first when I'm writing a grant because let's face it, what we're spending money on is actually dictating what's important. So budgets tell a story just as much as a narrative. If your film has a big crew, well, there's a reason for that, which you can then explain in your narrative. I like to try to put myself in the shoes of the funder. What's going to make them say yes? What's going to make them hesitate? It can be a rough road, but everything's a learning opportunity. Thank you, Nelson. And again, I try to keep myself very zen during this process. This is Mount Rainier, where I got to go a couple years ago. Grant writing, I think, just takes patience, it takes time, it takes guts, and the reward can be funding. So how awesome is that? I'll invite Paige Sharp, to come.
Great. Thank you, Anne. So a couple things I want to follow up on. One, the spreadsheet that James mentioned. Thank you, James, for researching all of those. That was incredibly time-consuming.
But it was also, for me, too.
Helpful for you.
Yeah.
It's mutually beneficial.
mutually
I get it. But the time investment cannot be understated because I started looking at that stuff too and I was like, holy shit, this is going to take forever. You might consider making it editable so that other people, as they learn about stuff, they can update it. Things in grant world change all the time. I know because I managed, oh my God, I've granted out over $50 million in my career. And that's just arts funding. If it was economic development funding, that'd be way more money, right? So know that this is what I'm sharing with you is just from deep, deep, deep experience. So, because I've changed those policies from year to year, like around fiscal sponsorship, for example, like the national humanities, they don't allow fiscal sponsors, but lots of other people do. I also want to follow up on some things around finding funders for your particular project, because you're going to have to get scrappy. You're going to have to get a little bit creative. And it really kind of revolves around two key things. One, Anne talked about the budget. Like, what are your needs? What kind of supply needs? What kind of location? What kind of equipment? What kind of humans? Are they older? Are they younger? Are they students? Are they senior citizens? So I'm going to put that to talk about in just a little bit. Then there's the other bucket about what is your film really focused on? Is it environment? Is it mental health? Is it democracy? Is it even agriculture? I say this because this is where you might need to get creative. That's where, who would care about your project? The people. If it's about environment, it would be like REI. Could be a great potential sponsor. Maybe if it's about mental health, state government has grants. I mean, state grants are a lot of what government does at the state and federal level. Things may change, but they will bounce back. But know that you have to think about who might really be the folks that you could connect with based upon the topic. And James mentioned that, but I just wanted to state it a little bit more deeply. When it comes to the budget and your needs, remember you've got like your local businesses, they can donate space. You can partner with a nonprofit to bring in people. So those are also resources. Okay, so I'm going to take what Anne said. You have submitted your grant. So we're going through that thought process. So congratulations, you submitted a grant. Yay, you. That was a lot of work. Well done. So what happens after you do that? So that's kind of where I come in. So anyway, the application comes into the funder. Generally, there's a program manager, and hopefully you have touched base with that program manager because you are more likely to be funded if you have talked to the program manager. So if you have questions throughout the process, like, I don't know what the hell that means. I don't even know what it mean by in-kind. Well, call them, ask. Amass questions though, because you don't want to like bug them, but that will increase your likelihood of getting funded. So just heads up there. When the application comes in, they're going to look and make sure can even be considered for funding. They want to make sure it's even eligible for their program. So quite simply, like we were talking about earlier, if an individual submits the grant, like Bob Ross for his Happy Little Trees documentary, and this is only open to nonprofits, well then it will not be eligible and they'll toss it out immediately. Somebody talked about like a technicality. So you really, really need to review the guidelines. That is your book. That's your policies. That's your guidebook. Because you want to read those before you even put pen to paper ostensibly, right? Because that's time consuming. So you only want to focus on the funds, grants that you're going to be eligible for. So then we talked about once you get through that, like, oh, it's eligible, yay. Then the reviewer to make sure that the application doesn't have issues like the upload is blank or only part of the budget is there. So I always highly recommend that you have somebody else review the application before you submit it. Preferably somebody who's not familiar with your project. They'll ask for them to look for a couple key things. That you answered the question. This is one of the most common issues in grant writing is they get so lost in the ether about writing well. They don't answer the actual question. So that's something to be cognizant of. And also that the uploads are accurate and that it flows and it makes sense. So always really helpful to do. So let's say that your application, it's eligible. Now it goes to the process of whomever is going to determine if it's going to get funded or not. Anne showed you a slide that had some interesting language on there. Impact. Artistic quality, those are seed words that generally in guidelines, these applications are measured by something, like a rubric. Anybody heard of a rubric before? This is like teacher stuff. Okay, we got one person way in the back. Shit. I'm gonna have to like come up with a better description of that. So it's measured by something. So let's say it's like there are 4 criteria. Each are 25 points each. One could be artistic quality, one could be the impact, one could be like the people who support stuff, one could be feasibility. That's scoring. They're going to measure it somehow. Because some of these funders get like 1,200 applications. I am not kidding you, 1,200 applications. Luckily, those tend to be a little bit higher dollars, but typically they're measured. So you're going to want to know what the application is being measured by. So you can speak to that. Does that make sense? So if one of the measures is feasibility, how might that be scored? That means that the budget doesn't have like $50,000 for supplies, $20,000 for personnel, and maybe one other thing. It's going to be more detailed than that. When a funder reads big buckets like that, they're like, oh, I don't know, man. They lose trust immediately. And also that you have experienced personnel, so you want to sing the praises. You want to talk to that. You want to speak that language. Is that making sense? Sure. So know the criteria. That's really important. And make sure all this stuff is in the application. So you can have one human reviewing all these applications. You can have a group of people, like a grant application reviewer. Sometimes it's open to the public. You can watch the panel live. And a lot of times it's just behind closed doors. There's so many different ways this is done. 99% of the time it is evaluated by some sort of, I'll never use that word rubric again after today, but some sort of like scoring thing, okay? Yeah, rubric. No, I knew that was gonna go over, but I thought I'd throw it out there anyway. Okay, grant selection. So let's say your grant wasn't selected. That totally sucks. I'm sorry. Trust me, as a funder, I always feel really bad about that because I know you worked really hard. But I also know that no matter what, you're always learning through the process. You're improving your project 100%. I know that I've written these things. You want to look at it as a learning opportunity to always request feedback. Request the feedback so that you know. And also do a little self-evaluation, like, all right, be real. Like, how Hail Mary was that application? Like, maybe it wasn't totally aligned with what the funder was doing. That's okay. Maybe the budget wasn't terribly realistic, so just think about those things as well. I always recommend to folks, if they want to improve their grant writing skills, become a grant review panelist. There is an online form, hopefully, still on the Indiana Arts Commission's website. I know I built it years ago. Maybe it's not there, but hopefully it is. Because if you are going to review applications, then you start to see what is good, what is successful, what makes sense, how do you align with the criteria. And trust me, the state has a kind of fastidious process, so they're a good measure for that. Yeah, it's time consuming, but you learn, and you learn fast. So cannot recommend that even more. Maybe the Arts Council of Indianapolis might be another option as well. Okay, so what if it is selected? You're like, oh my God, yes, I got selected, hooray. So this is where you go into contract. And this is where, within that contract, that's where you learn, like, okay, what am I accountable for? Obviously, you got to spend the money within what you said you would spend the money. Likely you're going to have to acknowledge the funder in some way. Funders can be really picky about that, okay? They can be like, it has to have this logo, but if it's too small, then it has to have this text. Follow those directions, because you do not want to piss off a funder at all. You really don't. And they get so irritated by that. They really do. So be very, very mindful about acknowledging appropriately. Now, you know what I do? I put it on a Post-it note on my laptop, so I don't have to go dig for that shit later, because that's a pain. Why bother? Anything that you're required to do, put it on a Post-it on your desktop. You know, not a handwritten one unless you want to, I suppose. The other thing to be aware of is what happens, what's their process if something changes, because life happens. We all know that, right? And that could impact your project, so you need to know what their process is if something gets real in your life and you need to maybe delay the grant. So know that too. So you get the contract, you sign it, hopefully you've read it at least somewhat, and then you're on your way. You want to do all of what you're required to do within the timeline. That's important. And then you want to track things throughout the process rather than at the last minute, which is like a well-duh thing, but so many people don't do that. I totally have not done that before. I've blown that off before, and I wanted to just shoot myself for it. Here are some of the things that you may be required to track 100%. The budget. They're going to want to know what you spend it on. They may ask, like a public funder may ask, did you spend the $5,000 that we gave you? Yes or no? It could be that simple, but they could always audit you. So you want to make sure you have some sort of tracking. Another thing funders typically ask for is participants. How many people participated in your project in some way, right? So if you host something or you have a shoot, then you want to just document how many people were there. Some will ask more details, some may not. What?
I'm currently doing that now.
Oh, James is in the midst of that joy. Yes. Yay. Share information with your funder. So if you are going to be shooting somewhere and you're really excited about them, say, hey, let them know. Hey, by the way, we'll be doing this if you want to stop by and see it happening. Or you have a launch event, you have a screening, invite them to the screening. Some may require it, but it's also really good networking. Let's see. And then you also want to make sure you report by the deadline. Lots of people don't report by the deadline. It freaks the funder out. So does like not responding to the funder. So if the funder emails you, ideally you respond within 3 business days. Because you can go from yellow to orange to red to a funder pretty quick within that contact. So always be responsive, even if something has gone wrong. Just reach out to them. Most of them will work with you. Most of them, I mean, we certainly did at the state, and when I worked with a private funder, we're like, oh man, that blows. Okay, let's figure it out. How can we work together to sort this through? So some pro tips. Program managers, the person that receives those applications, they're here to help you. They're there to help you. So if you have questions, you're confused, reach out to them. Hopefully you can. It always depends on, you know, the size of the funder. Maybe some of our national or international ones may not be able to get back to you as quickly. But certainly smaller foundations or state governments, they will. Always be transparent and responsive, like I said. And be proud of yourself, because when you've gone through a granting process, like that's an achievement. It really is. I think grants are fascinating, and they can be really trying sometimes, but you learn a lot, and it's a very long-term strategy. So when you're looking at raising money, remember your sponsors and your donors are more of your short-term strategy or crowdfunding. Grants are more of your long-term strategy.